Tonight, as the soft sound of rain gently falls in the background, you can allow your mind to slow down and your body to relax as we begin the quiet story of a man who would go on to build one of the most powerful empires in the world, not with noise or sudden fame, but with patience, clarity, and a deeply focused vision, a man named Jeff Bezos. In this calm moment, there is no rush, no pressure, just a slow unfolding of a journey that began long before the world knew his name. Back when everything was simple and the future was still uncertain, Jeff Bezos was born in a time when the world was very different, long before the internet connected people across the globe, long before online shopping became a part of everyday life. And as a child, he was not surrounded by luxury or success, but by curiosity, a quiet and steady curiosity that would slowly shape the direction of his life. From a young age, Jeff showed signs of deep thinking, often spending time alone, exploring ideas, building small experiments, and trying to understand how things worked, not in a loud or attention-seeking way, but in a calm and focused manner, as if he was already beginning to see patterns that others could not yet notice. He would take apart toys, not to break them, but to understand them, to see what was hidden inside, to learn how each piece connected to another. And this simple habit, repeated over and over again, slowly built a mindset that would later become the foundation of something much bigger. As the rain continues to fall softly, you can imagine a young boy sitting quietly, completely absorbed in his own world of ideas, not distracted by noise, not chasing approval, just slowly learning, slowly growing, without even realizing where this path might lead. There was something different about the way he approached life, a kind of calm patience, a willingness to observe before acting, to think before speaking, and this quiet nature would become one of his greatest strengths in the years to come. As he grew older, his curiosity did not fade. It only became deeper, more focused, more intentional. And while others were busy following familiar paths, Jeff began to notice new possibilities, especially in a world that was slowly beginning to change with the early signs of technology. It was not obvious at the time, and no one could clearly see what the future would look like, but somewhere in his mind, a quiet idea was beginning to take shape, an idea that would eventually grow into something far beyond what anyone could imagine. And as this moment gently settles, and your mind becomes more relaxed, more open, the story slowly continues, moving forward into the next phase of his life, where small thoughts would begin to turn into real decisions. And as those early thoughts quietly began to take form, Jeff Bezos moved into a phase of life where learning became more structured, yet his natural curiosity continued to guide him beyond the limits of traditional education, leading him toward deeper understanding and new possibilities. As he entered his school years, there was a noticeable calmness in the way he approached problems, never rushing, never reacting impulsively, but instead observing carefully, thinking deeply, and then acting with quiet confidence, a pattern that would stay with him throughout his life. He was not the kind of person who needed constant attention, nor did he seek validation from others. His focus was internal, driven by a genuine interest in how the world worked, and this allowed him to spend long hours exploring ideas that many around him would overlook. During his time in school, he developed a strong interest in science and technology, not because it was expected, but because it felt natural to him, like a continuation of the curiosity he had carried since childhood. And while others followed instructions, Jeff often found himself thinking beyond them. There was a certain stillness in his learning process, a patience that allowed him to absorb information deeply rather than quickly. And this slow, steady approach gave him a strong foundation, one that would later support much larger and more complex decisions. As the years passed, his path led him to Princeton University, a place where some of the brightest minds gathered, and even in such a competitive environment, Jeff maintained his calm and focused mindset, choosing to study electrical engineering and computer science, fields that were beginning to shape the future in subtle but powerful ways. At Princeton, he was surrounded by ambition, by fast thinkers and strong competition, yet he did not allow himself to be overwhelmed. Instead, he continued to move at his own pace, learning, adapting, and quietly preparing for something that was still forming in the background of his mind. After graduating, Jeff entered the world of finance and technology, working in high-level positions where the pace was fast and the expectations were high. But even in these environments, he remained steady, composed, and thoughtful, observing patterns, understanding systems, and slowly building a clearer picture of where the world was heading. It was during this time that he noticed something unusual, something that many others had seen but not truly understood: the rapid growth of the internet, a new space that was expanding quietly, almost unnoticed by the majority, yet full of untapped potential. While others saw uncertainty, Jeff saw opportunity, not in a loud or aggressive way, but in a calm and calculated manner, as if he was connecting pieces of a puzzle that had been forming over many years. The idea did not arrive suddenly, it grew slowly, shaped by his experiences, his observations, and his deep understanding of systems. And as this idea became clearer, it began to pull him in a direction that would require a significant decision, one that would change the course of his life completely. As the gentle rhythm of the rain continues and your thoughts begin to slow even further, the story moves quietly toward a moment where comfort would be left behind, and a new path would begin to unfold, one step at a time, with calm determination. As the gentle rhythm of the rain continues and your thoughts begin to slow even further, the story moves quietly toward a moment where comfort would be left behind, and a new path would begin to unfold, one step at a time, with calm determination. At this point in his life, Jeff Bezos had what many would consider a stable and successful career, working in a high-paying job surrounded by opportunity, security, and a clear path forward. Yet deep inside there was a quiet feeling that something more was possible, something that could not be ignored. It was not a loud or urgent thought, but a steady realization, shaped by everything he had learned so far, especially the rapid growth of the internet, which at the time was expanding at an extraordinary rate, quietly transforming the way information moved across the world. Jeff began to study this growth carefully, noticing patterns, asking questions, and slowly building a vision in his mind, a vision that was simple at first, yet filled with potential. The idea of creating an online store, a place where people could buy things without leaving their homes. It was a bold idea for that time, when most people were still unsure about using the internet, and online shopping was almost unheard of. But to Jeff, it felt like a natural step forward, something that aligned perfectly with the direction in which the world was moving. Still, the decision to act on this idea was not easy. Leaving behind a secure job for something uncertain required more than just belief. It required clarity, patience, and a willingness to take a risk without knowing the outcome. Instead of rushing, Jeff approached this decision with the same calm mindset he had always carried, carefully thinking through the possibilities, weighing the risks, and imagining both success and failure, not with fear, but with acceptance. He later described this approach as a way to minimize regret, asking himself a simple question: would he regret not trying? And the answer, quietly but clearly, was yes. And so, with a steady sense of purpose, Jeff made the decision to step away from his comfortable life and move towards something unknown, not with excitement or noise, but with a quiet confidence that this path was worth exploring. He packed his things and, along with his wife, began a journey across the country, a long drive filled with thoughts, ideas, and plans that were still forming, as the sound of the road blended with the rhythm of possibility. During that journey, he began writing the foundation of what would become his company, shaping the structure, defining the vision, and slowly turning an idea into something real, something that could exist beyond his imagination. There was no guarantee of success, no clear roadmap, just a direction, guided by observation, patience, and a deep understanding of change. And as the journey continued, both on the road and within his mind, the quiet beginning of something extraordinary was taking shape. And as the rain softly continues in the background, and your body becomes heavier with relaxation, the story gently moves forward into the next phase, where this idea would meet reality, and the first steps of building would begin, slowly and steadily. And as the rain softly continues in the background, and your body becomes heavier with relaxation, the story gently moves forward into the next phase, where this idea would meet reality, and the first steps of building would begin. Slowly and steadily, Jeff Bezos arrived with a vision that was clear in his mind, yet still fragile in the real world. And instead of seeking a grand office or a perfect beginning, he chose simplicity, starting in a small garage, a quiet space where ideas could take shape without distraction. There was no audience watching, no immediate recognition, just a few basic tools, a simple setup, and a growing determination to turn an idea into something real, something useful, something lasting. He decided to begin with books, not because they were easy, but because they offered a wide selection and a clear structure, making them a perfect starting point for an online store. And, with this focus, the foundation of Amazon slowly began to form. The early days were not filled with excitement, but with careful work, long hours, and a steady rhythm of small progress, building the website, organizing systems, and preparing for a future that was still uncertain. Orders did not come immediately, and there were moments of silence, moments when nothing seemed to move. Yet Jeff remained calm, trusting the process, understanding that meaningful growth often begins quietly, without visible signs. Then slowly the first orders began to appear, small at first, almost unnoticeable, but each one carried significance. Each one was a signal that the idea was beginning to connect with the world outside. There was a simple bell in the office that would ring every time a new order came in, and in the beginning it rang softly, occasionally, marking each small step forward. But as time passed, the sound became more frequent, gently filling the space with a sense of quiet progress. Jeff and his small team worked with patience, packing books by hand, solving problems as they appeared, and improving the system day by day, not with pressure, but with focus and consistency. There were challenges, of course, moments where things did not go as planned, where systems needed adjustment, where uncertainty returned. But instead of reacting with stress, Jeff approached each situation with the same calm mindset, observing, understanding, and then acting. The garage, once just a simple starting point, had now become the center of something growing, something expanding beyond its small walls. And while the outside world was still unaware, a quiet momentum was building. As the rain continues its steady rhythm and your thoughts drift gently, you can imagine this space filled not with noise, but with quiet effort, steady focus, and the early signs of something that would one day reach far beyond what anyone in that moment could fully see. And as this phase settles, the story slowly moves forward into a time where growth would begin to accelerate, bringing new challenges, new opportunities, and a deeper test of patience and vision. And as this phase settles, the story slowly moves forward into a time where growth would begin to accelerate, bringing new challenges, new opportunities, and a deeper test of patience and vision. What had once been a quiet beginning in a small garage was now slowly expanding into something larger, something that required more structure, more people, and a stronger system to support the growing demand. And with each passing day, the pace began to change, not suddenly, but steadily. Orders increased. The simple bell that once rang occasionally now echoed more often, filling the space with a rhythm of progress. And while this could have created pressure, Jeff continued to remain calm, focused not on the noise of growth, but on the clarity of the process. He understood that growth was not just about selling more, but about building something reliable, something that people could trust. And this mindset guided every decision, from customer service to delivery systems, each detail carefully considered, each improvement made with intention. As Amazon began to gain attention, more people started to notice. Investors showed interest. Competitors slowly emerged, and the environment became more complex. Yet Jeff did not rush to react. Instead, he stayed grounded, choosing long-term thinking over short-term excitement. There were moments of uncertainty, times when the future felt unclear, especially as the company began to expand beyond books, exploring new categories, new systems, and new risks, and with each step, the level of challenge increased. But even in these moments, there was no panic, only a steady approach, a willingness to adapt, to learn, and to continue moving forward. One decision at a time, guided by a clear vision that had been forming for years. The team grew, the operations became more refined, and the small garage was no longer enough. The company moved into larger spaces, but the core mindset remained unchanged, simple, focused, and quietly determined. Jeff often emphasized the importance of customer experience, not as a strategy, but as a principle, something that would guide the company through both success and difficulty, ensuring that every step taken was aligned with a deeper purpose. As the rain continues to fall gently and your breathing becomes slower, you can sense this period of steady expansion. Not chaotic, not overwhelming, but controlled, thoughtful, and guided by a calm confidence. There were still many unknowns ahead, many paths yet to be explored, and as the company moved forward, the challenges would grow more complex, testing not just the systems, but the strength of the vision itself. And as this quiet momentum continues to build, the story gently shifts toward a phase where pressure would increase, where doubts would appear, and where the true resilience behind this quiet empire would begin to reveal itself. And as this quiet momentum continues to build, the story gently shifts toward a phase where pressure would increase, where doubts would appear, and where the true resilience behind this quiet empire would begin to reveal itself. As Amazon expanded further, the environment around it began to change. Competition grew stronger, expectations became higher, and the once simple path started to feel more complex. Yet through all of this, Jeff Bezos maintained the same steady presence, choosing clarity over reaction and patience over fear. There were times when the company faced significant losses, moments when the numbers did not look promising, and many outside observers began to question whether this quiet vision could truly sustain itself, whether it was growing too fast or perhaps too far ahead of its time. But inside, the approach remained unchanged. There was no rush to prove anything, no need to respond to every doubt. Instead, Jeff focused on what he believed mattered most, building long-term value, improving systems, and continuing to invest in the future, even when the present seemed uncertain. It was during this time that Amazon began to evolve beyond just an online bookstore, slowly transforming into something much larger, a platform that could offer a wide range of products, services, and experiences, all connected by a single idea: simplicity and accessibility. This transformation was not easy. It required bold decisions, careful planning, and a willingness to move forward without immediate results. And once again, Jeff approached it with calm determination, trusting the process rather than seeking quick outcomes. There were long periods where progress felt slow, where results were not immediately visible, and where patience was tested again and again, but instead of changing direction, he stayed aligned with the original vision, allowing time to do its work. As the company continued to grow, new innovations began to take shape. Systems became more advanced, logistics improved, and the experience for customers became smoother, more reliable, and more consistent, quietly strengthening the foundation of the entire structure. Even as the outside world reacted with noise, opinions, and constant change, inside Amazon there was a different rhythm, one that moved with focus and intention, guided by principles rather than pressure. As the soft sound of rain continues to flow and your mind drifts deeper into relaxation, you can feel the weight of this journey, not as something heavy, but as something steady, something built over time with care and persistence. And as this phase gently settles, the story moves forward once again toward a time where this quiet persistence would begin to show its results more clearly, where the world would start to recognize what had been built, and where the vision would expand even further beyond its original form. And as this phase gently settles, the story moves forward once again toward a time where this quiet persistence would begin to show its results more clearly, where the world would start to recognize what had been built, and where the vision would expand even further beyond its original form. Over time, the steady decisions, the patient growth, and the calm consistency began to shape something much larger than what had first started in a simple garage. Amazon was no longer just an online store, it had quietly become a part of everyday life for millions of people around the world. What once felt uncertain was now becoming familiar, trusted, and widely used, and yet, even as recognition grew, Jeff Bezos did not shift into celebration or comfort. Instead, he remained focused, continuing to look ahead, continuing to explore what could come next. There was a quiet understanding that success was not a final destination, but a moment within a longer journey, and this perspective allowed him to keep moving forward without becoming distracted by what had already been achieved. Amazon continued to expand into new areas, technology, cloud computing, logistics, and services that went far beyond its original purpose, each step taken with careful thought, each expansion guided by the same core principles that had been present from the beginning. The company grew stronger, more stable, and more influential, but at its core, the same calm rhythm remained, a focus on building, improving, and serving, rather than reacting to noise or chasing attention. Jeff's leadership style remained quiet, often behind the scenes, centered on long-term thinking, encouraging innovation, and allowing ideas to grow over time, rather than forcing immediate results. As the world watched this growth, there were many interpretations, many opinions, but beneath all of that there was a simple truth. Something steady had been built, something that did not rely on sudden moments but on years of consistent effort. And as the rain continues to fall gently and your body feels more at ease, you can sense the stillness within this journey, a reminder that meaningful things often grow quietly, without urgency, without noise, simply through time and attention. There is no rush here, no need to hold on to every detail, just a slow understanding that this path, like many others, unfolded step by step, each moment connecting to the next in a calm and continuous flow. And as this quiet story approaches its final phase, it gently moves toward a place of reflection, where everything that has been built can simply exist, without pressure, without movement, just as it is, steady and complete. And as this quiet story approaches its final phase, it gently moves toward a place of reflection, where everything that has been built can simply exist, without pressure, without movement, just as it is, steady and complete. The journey of Jeff Bezos, from a curious child to the builder of a vast and influential empire, was never about rushing forward or seeking attention. It was about moving step by step, with patience, clarity, and a quiet belief in a vision that only he could fully see in the beginning. There were no sudden leaps, no perfect moments, just a continuous flow of decisions, each one made with care, each one connected to a larger picture that slowly revealed itself over time, like a story unfolding gently, without force. And now, as you rest in this calm space, listening to the soft rhythm of the rain, you can feel how this journey was not just about success, but about consistency, about staying steady even when things were uncertain, about trusting the process even when results were not immediate. The world may see the outcome, the scale, the influence, but beneath all of that there is a quieter truth, something simple and peaceful, that great things are often built in silence, away from noise, through time and attention. There is nothing here that needs to be rushed, nothing that needs to be proven, just a reminder that progress can be calm, that growth can be steady, and that even the largest empires can begin with a single, quiet idea. As the rain continues to fall softly, you can allow your thoughts to slow down even more, letting go of anything that feels heavy, anything that feels unfinished, knowing that everything moves at its own pace, just as it should. Your breathing becomes softer, more natural, your body more relaxed, as the story gently fades into stillness, leaving behind only a sense of calm, a quiet awareness that there is no need to hold on, no need to think further. And in this moment, just like the journey you have just heard, everything is simply flowing, quietly, peacefully, without effort. You can rest now, letting the calm settle deeper, allowing sleep to come naturally, slowly, and without resistance, as the sound of rain continues, steady and soft, guiding you into a deeper and more restful state. And as this gentle story comes to an end, there is nothing more to follow, nothing more to do, just a quiet space, a calm mind, and the comfort of knowing that everything is exactly where it needs to be as you drift slowly into sleep.